The great house at Collinwood in the year 1840. And on this night, an atmosphere of tragedy pervades its halls. A young woman named Roxanne Drew has died. No one in the house is yet aware of the repercussions her death will bring. In the old house on the Collins estate, Barnabas Collins sits in solitary grief. Only he and Julia know that before another night has passed, Roxanne will become one of the living dead.
Are you Mr. Barnabas Collins?
I am.
My name is Randall Drew. Roxanne was my sister. May I come in?
By all means. Terrible about Roxanne. Let me extend to you my condolences.
Thank you.
I wasn't aware that Roxanne and Samantha had a brother.
I've been away from Collinsport for some time, practicing law in New York.
Oh, I see. And you've returned with the funeral.
Yes. Mr. Collins, what do you know about my sister's death?
What do you mean?
Lamar Trask told me that he has reason to believe Roxanne died as a result of an act of sorcery, and that you were somehow implicated.
Act of sorcery.
Mr. Collins, I'm not saying that I believe what Mr. Trask told me, although it did depress me quite a bit. But after all, he must have some reason for believing what he does.
I'm afraid I can't begin to think of what it is.
Well, I can't either. When Mr. Trask is pinned down, he becomes rather vague. Why do you think was the cause of Roxanne's death?
Well, no doubt you heard about the animal attack.
Yes.
I assume she died from the wound she received.
Oh, but I understand that happened a few weeks back. You were one of the last people to see her on the night she died. Did she seem ill then?
No. As a matter of fact, she was in exceptionally high spirits.
But 3 hours later, she was dead. And Trask tells me that the animal wound on her neck mysteriously reopened. How could that have happened? Who would have wanted to harm her?
I have no idea. She was loved by everyone that knew her.
Were you in love with her, Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Aren't you a married man?
Yes, I am. But I must confess that I loved her very much. Of course, my own circumstances have not allowed me to think of any future with her, and I told her that.
I see. Well, I don't know what to make of Trask's opinions.
Well, perhaps you should know that Mr. Trask has been in a very exceptionally, disturbed state. You see, she was engaged to Roxanne, but just before she died, she broke off her engagement.
Are you sure about that? That she broke the engagement?
I'm absolutely sure. Perhaps Mr. Trask couldn't face the fact that she broke off the engagement simply because she didn't love him, so he had to find another reason.
Yes, I believe that may be completely understandable. Mr. Collins, I hope that these questions haven't bothered you. It's just that I wanted to clear my mind about all of this.
I understand. Oh, Julia, this is Randall Drew, Roxanne's brother. This is my sister, Julia.
Oh, how do you do? I'm so sorry about Roxanne.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Collins, I shan't keep you any longer. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
What did he want?
Seems that Trask has been filling him with stories of sorcery.
Do you think he believed them?
No. But Trask may be able to prove what he's saying if she becomes a vampire. Oh, the arrangements for the funeral have been completed.
Yes, it'll be early tomorrow afternoon.
Well, she will not rise until tomorrow. You know what to do.
Yes, tomorrow after everyone comes back to the house, I will go to the crypt.
Sad. I cannot bear to think of a stake through her heart.
Must be done, Barnabas. You know it's the only way she can rest in peace.
Yes. Peace.
Peace? No. I will be wandering as long as I live to find out why she had to die and who was responsible for it.
You are certain that someone is responsible?
I'll tell you what I think. There's a monster on the loose. Roxanne wasn't his only victim. Our governess, Hortense, was viciously attacked in the woods.
Isn't it possible, though, that both these deaths were caused by the attack of some animal?
Not if what Hortense said before she died is true.
What did she say?
Something about a strange, bodiless head.
Bodiless head?
Yes, I know it sounds absurd, but a person's dying words cannot be dismissed lightly.
I know that, but who did she say it to?
Julia, she and Barnabas found Hortense's body in the woods.
Hello, Samantha.
Randall, I would like you to meet Valerie Collins. This is my brother Randall.
How do you do?
Mrs. Barnabas Collins?
Yes, that's right. Well, I think the two of you probably want to be alone to talk things over. I have to go back to the old house. Please excuse me.
So that's his wife.
Yes, where have you been? I haven't seen you since lunchtime.
I stopped at the old house to meet him
Why?
because of what Trask told me. What do you know about Barnabas Collins?
I'm sure Randall will want to speak to me when I see him at Collinwood. I was the one that declared Roxanne dead.
Well, if he does, what can he find out?
Nothing, I suppose. But I don't need lawyers probing questions at this point, Barnabas.
I know. By dusk tomorrow, let's hope that it will be all over.
Well, it's obvious that you don't listen very well, dear sister-in-law. I told you that you were no longer welcome here. Now, are you going to leave? Or do I have to force you to leave?
You might as well go back to Collinwood. I want to speak with her alone.
I know exactly what you're going to say, so don't bother. I warned you what would happen if you ever went near Roxanne again.
What have you gained by doing this?
I have my husband back. And in time, there will be a reconciliation.
There's no chance of that ever happening, and you know it. Now, do what you want. I no longer care.
Something different about you in this time. You've undergone some kind of change. You're not the same man I used to know. You're even more bitter to me now than you were before. There has to be some reason why you've changed. And I think I know what it is. Julia.
Julia? What has she got to do with us?
I don't know. But I know as well as you do that she's not your sister. And I intend to find out who she is and just why she is so important to your life.
Randall, I wish you wouldn't go back to New York. There are so many things happening here. I'm terribly frightened.
I know. I have thought about staying.
You wouldn't have any trouble starting a practice here of your own. And anyway, dearest, you belong here.
I'd be better off joining an existing firm like Thorndike and Hanley.
No! I don't want you working for them. They're the Collins family lawyers.
Samantha, I feel no bitterness toward the Collins family. And I'm sorry that you do.
You, above all people, have a perfect right to feel bitter toward Quentin Collins. You introduced him to the girl you loved. He took her away from you in spite of the fact that he was married to me. How can you forget Joanna? You can't even bear to hear her name, can you?
It is past history and best forgotten. I haven't seen her in 4 years, and I don't ever plan to see her again. Even though I know that it's over between her and Quentin.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's quite all right, Miss Collins. Please do come in.
I just really wanted to know about the schedule tomorrow. If you feel up to talking about the funeral.
Yes, these things must be done. We will be leaving the house shortly before 1 o'clock. You will be in the carriage with Gabriel and Edith. The ceremony at the cemetery will begin promptly at 1:30. It will be very brief, as I feel that that's the way she would have wanted it. Reverend Stone will give the eulogy. Lamar Trask insisted upon that honor. It gave me great pleasure to turn him down.
How long have you been standing there?
Oh, only a moment.
Did you want to say something?
Oh, only that you're far more fascinating than I even imagined.
I don't know what you mean.
Tell me, who is Professor T. Elliot Stokes? Dr. Hoffman. Come, dear sister-in-law. You're not usually at a loss for words. Who is Professor T. Elliot Stokes?
I don't know. I've never heard that name before.
And perhaps I should mention a few more. Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, Carolyn Stoddard, Chris Jennings.
Don't know what kind of game you're playing.
I'm not playing any kind of game. You know all those names well. And you know that those people exist in the year 1970.
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about.
I'm talking about this curious document that I found in your room. Dr. Julia Hoffman, appointments, 1970. I had a lot of thoughts about where you might have come from, but I never dreamed that it was the future. Now, why don't you stop playing games and tell me all about it?
There's nothing to tell.
Oh, please, Julia. This is no time for modesty. Why, you've succeeded in transcending time. That alone is a miraculous accomplishment. And then as I look through this little journal of yours, I find that the name you mention most often is that of Barnabas Collins. That's even more fascinating, to think that Barnabas will be alive and active in 1970. So you see, there is a great deal to tell, and you might as well tell me now, because you're going to have to eventually.
All right. I've come from another time. I first met Barnabas in the year 1967.
Knowing what he was?
I didn't know at first, but I soon found out.
But then why didn't he kill you?
Because I swore I would keep his secret, and I have kept it.
Oh, I don't believe that. I know Barnabas too well to think that he would ever trust him.
Oh, no, you don't know Barnabas well enough. Not now or ever.
Or ever? Do you mean that I also will exist in 1970? Answer me, Julia.
I first met you in the spring of 1968. You were married to Roger Collins, and you called yourself Cassandra.
Oh, fascinating. To think that I will be alive. Here. More than 100 years from now?
That isn't necessarily true.
What do you mean?
Collinwood is destined to suffer a great disaster in the year 1970. Barnabas and I hope to alter certain events that will take place here and change the future. So if history has changed, you may never get to Collinwood in 1970.
And if history has changed, you may never get there either. It's possible for both you and Barnabas to become permanent members of this time. And I care far more about that than I do about the future. What was your relationship with him in 1971?
We were the best of friends as we are now.
You really expect me to believe that?
It's true.
I'll tell you what I believe. I think that you have some kind of influence over his thinking. I think that you have decided that he will never come back to me. Possibly because you yourself are in love with him. You poisoned his mind against me.
You're being completely irrational.
I trust my instincts implicitly. I have always known when I was in the presence of an enemy. And yes, you are an enemy. And I shall deal with you as such.
I know your powers. Why haven't you tried to destroy me before this?
It would have been too easy. And now that I know all about you, I'm very glad that I haven't. But I warn you, Julia, your time will come. For you, the future will change. I promise you.
Samantha, let me take you back to Collinwood with the others.
Let them wait. It'll only be a moment. I want to have a final look at her to say goodbye. Please open the coffin for me. I wanted so much for her. I wanted her life to be so different from ours. She had the capacity for happiness in her. Why did this have to happen to her? Why?
Julia, you will not go now. I know what Barnabas wants you to do. But you mustn't go now. Because you're tired. So very tired. You must sleep. Sleep, Julia. Sleep.
How about a little brandy, Samantha? It'll help.
Brandy won't bring her back. I must face the fact that she's gone. Life must continue.
Samantha, who was that young man standing at the grave beside Mr. Trask?
Do you mean Gerard Stiles?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you don't want to talk...
No, it's all right. You'll be meeting him sooner or later, and I'd best prepare you for him. Gerard is the most devious man I've ever met. He's greedy and ambitious and selfish. He thinks nothing of using people shamelessly for his own selfish ends. And the less either of you have to do with him, the better.
Who is Gerard Stiles, and where did he come from?
He came to Collinwood about 6 months ago to give us news of Quentin being lost at sea.
And he's been here ever since?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I'm afraid I'm responsible for that. I thought he was someone that I could trust. But when he turned out to be something quite different from that.
I think you'd better have that brandy after all.
I can't imagine why Barnabas Collins wasn't at the funeral this afternoon. He was so terribly fond of Roxanne.